Laura, thank you so much for coming over. I really appreciate it. I know you've got a little babe waiting for you, so I very much appreciate your time.
No worries.
Where did you come from, by the way? What?
Just from DUI,
Okay,
Northern
right.
Beaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going out with the fam today, or what's actually?
Yeah, well, actually, we came here really early because he woke up at 4 and we were like, shall we seize the day?
How old's your babe?
7 months. 7 months tomorrow.
Beautiful. All right, and so look, thanks for reaching out, by the way, because I'm doing this series. It's a cultural politics series, trying to find out what's going on out there. And so I put an ad up for feminism, trying to understand all the different opinions of feminism out there and just try to pull together something to get my own head around it, so really appreciate you reaching out.
No worries. It's always a topic I like to talk about.
Yeah, okay. So tell me a little bit about your background, like who you are, Laura, and any experience or insight you have to this umbrella of feminism.
Yeah, sure. So I'm obviously originally from the UK, if you can tell by my accent.
Lovely. What spot, by the way?
In the Cotswolds. Do you know it?
No.
Have you heard of Bristol?
Yeah.
Near Bristol. Or Cheltenham races.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
So near there. So originally from the UK, I actually came out to Australia 3 years ago in January. So I've been out here for 3 years. And just from a sort of feminism perspective, I am very much an advocate for gender equality. And one of the main reasons for that is just because I've kind of grown up in a male-dominated industry in terms of work.
Right.
So I'm a director in a large consulting firm, and it's in IT, in technology.
Oh, true. All the that's usually heavily male, right?
Yeah. So it's just a male-dominated industry. I think because back in the day, it's just the kind of job that the man would go for, and the women weren't necessarily told that they could become an engineer or they could go into the IT industry as well. So I'm assuming that's why it's more male dominated, but there are other reasons which we can go into.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's that element, and I've done a lot of work as I've gone up through my career just to advocate for gender equality and to get more women into the workplace, particularly in the technology industry. But as well as that, I'm also a board governor for the Rape and Domestic Violence not-for-profit charity.
Lovely. That's an Australian organisation.
Yes.
Wait, so how long have you been over here?
3 years.
3 years. Lovely. How long have you been on that board?
I think it's about a year now.
Nice.
Yeah, around a year.
Oh, cool. And so what's happening there, or with your workplace, or on that board? What are you
Yeah, so maybe I'll talk about the workplace first.
Sure.
So I guess from a gender equality perspective, if we talk about that, I think there's multiple reasons why there's like more sort of a male-dominated environment in the technology industry.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned before, I actually did a talk at a school once.
Lovely.
And we were talking about technology, and we actually asked the kids, they were, I think, about 15, and we asked the girls if they thought that they could have a career in technology.
Yeah.
And like barely any of them put their hand up because they just didn't think that it was a career that the women went into.
It's not in their minds at all, huh?
Yeah. And it was very surprising actually. And I think, there's a lot more work that needs to be done at the younger ages and not just once you get into the workplace, to sort of show women or young women that, they can do whatever career they want to. It doesn't have to be something that's quite, female oriented.
Sure.
Yeah. So there's a lot of work that I've done there. There's also biases that people have, unconscious bias.
Right.
That people have in their mind, and I think everybody has it, and they don't realise that they have it. So, you know, there may be some situations where somebody naturally gravitates more towards someone who's similar to them. So that might also be a reason why there's less women in, you know, an already male-dominated environment.
True. Definitely, it's got to be some barrier. There's got to be tons of like little invisible barriers, right?
Yeah.
And so, are you trying? Like, are you part of a project now of trying to like push for equality in the IT industry here in Australia?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've done quite a few things before. So I'm actually within my workplace. I'm actually part of a project that's more to do with raising awareness of domestic violence, particularly around COVID, because it actually happens more because people are stuck at home.
I feel like we should jump into that subject just a little later because I want to hear that. That sounds,
But in terms of gender equality, in my previous workplace anyway, I was part of a sort of women in technology group that was advocating for gender equality, and that can be, you know, from getting more women to senior positions,
sure,
to the gender pay gap. I don't know whether you've heard of the gender pay gap.
Sure, yeah. I've heard many discussions. It's interesting.
Yeah, and some of it's about. I think a lot of it actually is about education and educating people that there are certain things that are happening and certain inequalities that you might not see because it doesn't affect you.
Give me some like examples what you and the group, the initiative are like. What are you trying to tackle? Like, what is actually, you know, easy or first steps to tackle this? Like, women in IT, it sounds like a difficult task, you know. So
yes. So there's a few things. So then, there's the equality from a gender pay gap perspective. So getting the females and the males to basically have a similar pay package if they have the same role.
Can I just ask, is that like when, for example, the same role might have a range that the boss might be able to pay a range as opposed to just the one set flat salary? There's a range, and then when the person comes with experience or whatever, they say, I do this, and they kind of negotiate or push for that. You know, there's a bit of a difference there.
Yeah, so what it is, and I don't know the exact statistic, but there's basically in Australia, for example, the amount of money that men are paid is significantly more than the amount of money that women are paid, like at the same level. And every company does analysis to see,
This is across industries or just like IT?
It is across industries, yeah. There are some industries, I think the public sector didn't do very well in this area as well, but there are some industries that are worse than others. But generally, and again, when you talk about this conversation, there may be some reasons why that happens, like, you know, the women might go off on take a few years out because they look after the kids, and then when they come back, they might be on less than their male counterparts that have, you know, got pay rises whilst they've still been in the role, but not necessarily moved up to a different role. But just generally, and you've seen it in sports as well, people advocating for this, but just generally, the pay gap is a problem.
Yeah, so I've heard like a few different discussions on this. There's a few different angles or causes of the variance, so to speak. And I guess because I looked at it and I was thinking, like, surely there's not, it's illegal to pay, you know, the initial thoughts you think of the same role, it's illegal to pay someone different. But then obviously that's what I was mentioning just before, like there are many industries, where there's a range. And I guess that's where, say, whether you've been on maternity leave or not, if you're just going in for the job, there's a big competitive push at that level. So and
some people think that men are naturally able to negotiate. Maybe that's the wrong way to put it. I think from a personality perspective, it's thought that men go in a bit harder in terms of, will negotiate their salary, whereas from a personality perspective, most women, obviously not everybody, but most women will be like, okay, yeah, that's the salary, that's what I'll go in at. So again, that could be one reason.
Sure, yeah.
There's also the potential of the unconscious bias, which we talked about before, which may, if somebody's similar to you and you kind of naturally get on with them better, then you may give them a little bit more.
You relate a bit more, yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of reasons, and you talk about the range. And naturally, there is going to be a range, and there's going to be some people that are higher, some people that are lower, because they're coming in at different price points. They were on something different before. But it's looking at it in its entirety that's the problem, because you're basically looking at it and saying, from all of the men, and let's take a technology company, from all of the men in that specific level and all of the women, that's when you see that pay gap, and that's when it's like, okay, well, then that is a problem, because
I guess the initial response, just to kind of have the critical thinking analysis on that, is that the maternity leave is a big part of that drop in pay that women have. If you total their salaries up, they drop because of a lot of maternity leave. Is that a major part, or what are you guys finding?
I think there's potential for that to be one of the challenges, or one of the reasons why. And I'm just thinking about it, because if somebody leaves, and it wouldn't be if they leave for 6 months, it's more if they leave for a certain number of years.
Sure.
Because then they'll probably come back, and they'll have left their actual job, and they'll probably come back. They might be a little bit nervous to come back into the workplace. It's like starting a career all over again, really, isn't it? And starting work all over again. So again, it comes back to confidence as well. They might be a little bit less confident, so then it comes back to they might not negotiate.
Right, Is your group engaging with women coming back into the workforce after maybe maternity leave or something like that, or just even how does that go?
Yeah, so the company that I work at, it's one of the big 4 consulting firms, and they actually do a return to the workplace program. Yeah.
Nice.
And I actually interviewed some great women for it the other day. And it's basically a bit of support. So once you come back in, because even I was away for only 4.5 months with my baby, and now my husband's taking 3.5 months off, which we should talk about as well, because gender equality works both ways. But I was still nervous, right, coming back in, and I wasn't away for very long at all, but you just feel a little bit like, the only person you've spoken to for 4.5 months is your husband and your baby.
Yeah.
So then when you have to come back in and, you're talking to clients, and you need to, it's difficult. You lose a little bit of confidence.
Sure.
So the program that my company does basically just gives the women and the men that come back a little bit of that support and encouragement, just for the first, I don't know whether it's 6 or 12 months, to enable you to come back in, not slowly, but, with support.
Sure, amazing. Sounds like that's a huge thing that I guess most men don't really probably know about, or have to go through, or even probably ask for. They just assume it's off you go, you're back on the job. But it sounds incredibly important.
Yes, and the male thing, I think it's important to pick up on that as well, because from a gender equality perspective, I think something that's really good is more men are also taking paternity leave, whereas even 5 years ago, I don't think they even had think they only had 2 weeks that they were allowed to take off.
Yeah, true.
And even when the months started coming in, so my husband gets 3.5 months, and when that first came in, I think there was still a stigma, because you know the stereotype of the man as the breadwinner.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, I think there was still a stigma of the men that wanted to take time off, because it was like, no, you can't. You're the breadwinner. You're supposed to, make the money for the house. You can't take time off. And that was the stigma. And I think it's great that more and more men are now taking that time off.
100% for any couple that actually works that out for themselves, that's cool. Why not? So that's interesting to me, because there's a cultural shift with our mentality. Obviously the breadwinner, no, you have it, and then also, but I can speak to a lot of girls today and be like, would you do half? And they'd be like, fuck no, I want it all, because it's quite a luxury, I guess, to actually have it and have that time with your baby. So it's a desired time as well. Some women are very, motherly more than others or whatever, and they're like, no, I want it all, So
yeah,
I guess individually it works. If the couple's like, no, the woman's, I want to get back to work, and the guy's like, hey, I'd love that time.
Yeah,
perfect.
And it's worked really well for us, because I'm quite career driven, but at the same time, I am motherly as well, but I want both. And I'm like, why can't I have both? And my husband's great, because he wants both as well, but he's really supportive in terms of my career. And I couldn't be with someone that literally just wanted me to work at home, bring up the kids, not work at home, you know what I mean? Be a stay-at-home mum, bring up the kids, and not have a career.
So this is hilarious, because I know there'll be women out there very career driven, maybe like yourself, going, amazing, what a great example, perfect. And there's more, maybe say, traditional women that not just more motherly, I don't mean that's a bad word to say, but just the more traditional women that'll be like, no, fuck no, I don't want, I'm not giving up that time free.
And actually that's what I think feminism is. It's having the choice to do what you want. So as you say, for some women, being that stay-at-home mum is everything. They want to bring up their kids, they want to be with them every day, and spend that time with them. And then for others, it's, well, actually, I want a career as well. So I want to spend obviously time with the kids, but then also have my own career at the same time. And to me, feminism, it's not the, what do they say, like burning bras and protesting all the time. It's actually having that voice, and having the choice to be able to do what you want.
Amazing. I like how you said that. I think that's it. The choice, the access to options to choose exactly as you are, and not have anything pushed on you. Well, that's another thing. Well, I might as well ask you, what do you feel like feminism is, or what do you see maybe from your professional experience or even personal? There's obviously different opinions in this umbrella. This is why I put this advertisement up, because I was like, and by the way, not many feminists reached out to me. I'm like, here's a guy trying to, trying to say, teach me about your views. Not many people wanting to talk. And I think it's mainly because there are so many competing or opinions under feminism. So it's difficult to speak out and say what you think, because people might have a different view and criticize you or whatever. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on these. What is feminism, and how do you see it playing maybe professionally and also even personally?
Yeah, no, I genuinely think it is. It's basically for women, and it goes back to that gender equality, but it's enabling women to be able to have the same choices as men, and basically be able to do what they want in terms of their career, their home life, and have those choices. So, and I think that's what a lot of people either protest or advocate for nowadays. It's that choice and not being judged on everything that you do. So, for example, even me having 4.5 months off, it's a short period of time. I know people judge me for it.
Yeah.
And they're like, you haven't spent enough time with the baby. But actually, I found going back to work was better for me, because when I spend all day kind of looking after Leo, I find now that I go into work and come back and see him, it's just beautiful, because again I can do both of what I want to do. So
sounds like it's working perfect for you, and you feel more yourself.
But I do know other people will judge me because they have a certain viewpoint of how families should be. And feminism, I think, is also about trying to stop women being criticized for every choice that they make. So there's a lot out nowadays about again, the choices that women make, whether it's what they're wearing, or whether they wear makeup or not, or then you think about celebrities and the amount of abuse that they get if they don't look perfect. And it's like, well, why do they have to look perfect all the time? So it's also about, and I know I'm going in lots of different directions,
no, it's fine.
But I think it's also, bringing it back to feminism, it's also about not being judged and not being criticized for every single choice that you make.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a major message that I hear. Like, the freedom to be able to do as you please without having to, being judged socially or whatever it is. So. Okay. Well, what about, because IT, one of the major differences I remember seeing on the psychological side of things is, women are, I think, on average, more interested in people, whereas men are more interested in things, and that's like a major psychological difference in sexes. It seems like there's if you look at the bell curves, that's a big one. And so I think that's where IT and all the STEM fields, they're all majorly dominated by men. So, and I remember hearing some things like at Google, James Damore, he's an engineer, tried to talk about increasing women in that field, and he got in trouble for talking about it, things. And I just remember thinking, that's a difficult one, interest, and I guess can come down to what you're programmed in, your culture and all the rest. So as you said, the children at school were like, no girls were thinking about IT.
Yeah.
So that's a difficult one. How could you tackle that, say, in your industry? Is there any ideas you guys are thinking, or projects you're moving towards, or?
Yeah, I think it goes back to STEM, and STEM does a lot of this work already. But I was the same when I was young.
That just fell down. Don't worry about it.
When I was young, I didn't think I'd ever go into IT. My dad was in IT, and I thought it was sort of all coding, and just like you say, playing with things,
yeah.
with the computer.
Yeah.
I loved computer games, but that was about it. And so I think it's about spreading awareness to the younger generations, and actually getting them excited about technology. So when I was at school, IT was like Word, PowerPoint, Excel. That's not exciting, right?
No.
I know things are different now, and kids actually learn how to code, and they create things, which is very cool. But I think, so the work that I do now, it's in the technology industry, but I'm not necessarily a coder.
Sure.
I do work with people, consulting them on technology,
right,
or about their business. So I think it's also about spreading education and awareness to the younger generation, to show them what kind of careers they could have in technology, and getting them excited about technology. So showing them some of the cooler parts of technology, rather than
right.
Excel.
Well, it's booming. Yeah, we're booming so fast right now. I guess it's just getting bigger and bigger, this field. So hopefully that goes, in a way that's more exciting for girls as much as boys. That could be interesting.
Hopefully. And yeah, and back to STEM. So I know that STEM does a lot of work going into schools and holding events, and like my company and other companies that are very similar sponsor a lot of the events as well. And I've actually been on quite a few STEM events where we go into the schools and
cool.
or we'll bring, you know, the kids into an innovation centre where we show them some of the really cool technologies that will relate
cool.
to them.
Okay.
Yeah. And some of them are pretty cool.
A nice one. I like this. Okay, so educating the young ones, especially getting the girls involved, so showing them how it's exciting. It's an interesting topic, that one.
Yeah.
All right, what about this this board of, I don't know, what was the title? Tell me.
Rape and domestic violence charity.
Yeah, so how did you get involved in that, and what are you guys doing? I'd like to learn about that.
Yeah, so when I came over, I basically wrote to them and said I wanted to be part of your charity. I'm a volunteer on the board, because it's something that's really important to me. And actually, linking back to work, you asked about, you know, what are some of the things that we do there, in terms of the group that I was talking about. Like sexual harassment was a part of that as well. And obviously with the board, rape and domestic violence, what we're trying to advocate for is the elimination of any sexual abuse, assault and violence in the home, in the family. And what the charity, or what the not-for-profit does, is it basically supports any victims and families of victims that have gone through any of that. So they've got helplines and counselling and things like that.
Are they like funded by government as well, or anything, or what is it?
It's a mix. It's a not-for-profit.
Yeah.
So they have like some company funding,
Sure.
As in they give services to certain companies, as well as raised funds raised and grants from government as well.
All right. What are some of the things that you've seen there that maybe stand out with you, or just been learning over the last year? As you mentioned, like COVID times has been pretty grim.
I think there's been a few cases nationally that I don't know whether you've seen any of them, that have made the news just about from a domestic violence perspective, where, and it is men as well, but mainly women, the majority is women that are the victims, where some of them try and escape the relationship, and just find it so difficult because they're either taken away from their families, so they don't really have a lot of support to be able to get away, or the person that they're with will threaten them or the children to try and keep them to stay.
Right, yeah.
And obviously the worst case scenario is that they end up not making it because the violence gets too bad, and it's really hard. I think it's hard for the families because the families don't understand why that person stays with somebody that's violent towards them, so they don't understand, and it's so hard for the individual because they just feel completely trapped. And usually sometimes they're with somebody who is very manipulative.
Sure, yeah.
And is able to, I guess, influence them and make them feel completely powerless.
Right. Okay. What's the website of this board, this group? Do you know?
So it if you just put in rape and domestic violence, then it'll come up.
Okay.
So that's literally what the not-for-profit is called.
Yeah. Right. And companies can just get
Rape and Domestic
involved.
Violence Australia, I think.
Rape and Domestic Violence Australia.
Yeah.
So companies can get involved in support and work with you guys, donate money and things like that.
Yes, yeah. You can donate.
Probably incredibly needed, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Do you guys have like enough like to reach out to do the things or achieve the goals you're doing, or is it kind of like a struggle for resources, or how's it look?
I mean, it's always difficult, isn't it? Because you always want to do more. There's, especially with counselling, because there's only so many calls that you can take.
Sure.
So I mean, they're doing okay. They get good donations, as well as, you know, good services that they're supplying to different companies, and the services that they're supplying are actually more about awareness. And this,
is that like to go in and teach about like sexual harassment and things in companies, or?
Yeah, all domestic violence, and trying to spot when it might happen, when it might be happening to one of the colleagues.
Sure.
So that's really interesting. But they can always do with more money, because the more money they get, the more people they can help.
100%. So. It sounds like if anyone's listening that's part of a company that has access to donate, please get in touch with this organisation. So what did you see like during COVID? Was there more cases or something particularly different?
Yeah. And the reason for that is because obviously with the lockdown,
sure,
the victims would usually be able to go to work, whereas they were stuck at home. So there were a lot more cases where, or just a lot more of it happening because they're more at home in an enclosed environment with the abuser, and so it was really difficult. But then at the same time, sometimes it was difficult for them to get away and call. So yeah, because obviously they can't.
There's no privacy to.
Yeah. So we also know there's been situations where they haven't been able to actually get the support that they need. But I was in my company, I was part of a program or a group that were raising awareness about domestic violence through COVID.
Yeah, nice.
And we've set up some training, but we were also, you know, just, I guess, raising awareness through information for people, you know, putting some of the phone numbers on doors in the bathrooms, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, look, Laura, I'm happy you're here just actually saying this, because it's one thing to look at these pamphlets and see the numbers and see them on like a door of a cafe or wherever you see them. It's almost like it just melds into the background, and you don't actually pay that much attention to like a pamphlet or a poster saying rape and domestic violence in Australia, here's the number, and things like that. You just, as a guy at least, anyway, that's my perspective, but it's nice to hear people chatting and talking about these things and you explaining what you're seeing and all that. So I think that's amazing. It needs to be done more.
Exactly, and especially in the toilets, because and this might sound a bit extreme, but in some cases it's very real. That might be the only place that they have privacy. Because if they have somebody that's so controlling that that person won't let them out of their sight, then the only place that they have privacy is going into that bathroom to get hold of that number and potentially ring while they're in there. Yeah.
All right. Well, do you have anything like? Is there any statistics or numbers that you've come across yourself during those times, or any numbers that we could maybe get our eyes on? Like, I don't off
the top of my head.
Is it on Is there on? I don't even know if they display things like that. But is there like numbers like that on the website? Or?
Yeah, and the government will do national statistics.
Okay.
So they'll do national statistics of like every year how many, and it's usually the most serious things, but how many women have died from domestic violence.
Okay.
And the worst thing, and rape as well. How many rapes have been reported? Yeah.
Do they have them like split up into like areas or states or something like?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So they'll have them split up into states, and just on the rape topic. I think so much more needs to be done for both areas, for rape and domestic violence, but so much, I think a lot more education needs to happen, just in the general public, but also for the for the law enforcement in Australia.
What do you how are they dealing? Are they struggling to reach out and manage or help these people? Or?
So, I don't know whether have you watched the Netflix program Unbelievable?
I haven't. No.
You need to watch it.
Okay.
It's very good because it explains so well the situation. So I'll talk a bit about it because it's a very real situation.
Sure.
And I'll try not to give away the whole story. But there's a girl who basically gets raped and she tells the police. And there's also another girl in a completely different state who the same thing happens to, and she tells the police there. The second girl has female officers, and the first girl has male officers. And I'm not saying that the gender is this situation all the time. It's more the lack of education. But the one with the male officers, you watch the interviews and they just... It's just very hard to watch because they just make her tell the story over and over and over again. And they're so... traumatic. Yeah, and they're so... what's the word? Not corporate, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like robotic. There's no emotion in there, and trying to help her feel a little bit better or supported. But then the female officers are just a lot better talking to, and it's just very well done because it shows the two, and the story goes on for a lot longer. And it gets worse for that one girl because they end up not believing her. That's why it's called Unbelievable.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, the Netflix show aside, I mean, you can imagine just trying to think of it, that if you were a rape victim, you're a woman, that you'd want to speak to women anyhow. Like, I mean, maybe not all the time, however, but like you'd imagine that would be a first instinct. You'd be in a state of trauma. So
yeah, and so what I'm trying to get to is, like, from an education perspective, I think law enforcement first of all need to understand how to deal with the victims in that situation without traumatizing them even more, because the reason why most women won't come forward is either they don't want to go through the whole thing again, or they know that nothing's going to come of it, so people won't believe them. And that's the main problem. And I know, like, two sides to the coin here. There are some situations where actually somebody's lied about it. They're very minimal compared to the amount of people that come forward, and it gets taken to court and it's thrown out because there's not enough evidence. And again, that's still a very difficult situation, right? Because mainly court is judged on evidence, but then in rape situations, a lot of the time there isn't any physical evidence anyway. So it is a very difficult situation. There isn't a silver bullet to resolving this challenge, but I think so much more needs to be done to, first of all, educate law enforcement on how to actually deal with trauma in that sense, and how to work with the victims. And then I think still a lot more needs to be done on the actual cases themselves. Right,
like, just from what you've explained there, like, I'm pretty uneducated on the police process and their investigations with rape and domestic violence and things like that. But just from judging what you've said, it sounds like, there is a ton more work they could be doing or need to be doing to address the issue and make it comfortable or okay for women to speak up and get out of such situations, or educate both of the people that are before it's happened. Things, like, there's many steps they could really be addressing.
Yeah, and I think one of the worst things that happens, it doesn't happen as much now as it used to, but it still does happen, is the victim blaming. So in court, for example, I know situations where the lawyer for the defence basically blames the girl for what she was wearing and basically says, well, you know, you were wearing, I don't know, a mini skirt, so, you know, you were obviously out looking.
Yeah, that's like some stuff from a movie or something. Like,
yeah,
it's
but
like,
it
happens, yeah.
in court. I've seen the newspaper articles. I've seen
Yeah.
women committing suicide, right? Because they've had to go through all of that trauma again. Like, they've been brave enough to actually come, take the person to court, go through all of that trauma again, and then literally be told you are asking for it. And that's basically what that person's thinking. That's how it's coming across. And yeah, I think that's disgusting.
Oh, it's absolutely disgusting. It's so tragic for that to happen.
Exactly. So it's things like that really need to be fixed.
Does your organisation have any relationship with police?
Yeah, so there's different things that they do, and I think that's one aspect that they want to focus on. I don't think there isn't a formal relationship now, but that is an aspect. My organisation, they write a lot of letters and work with the government, write a lot of letters to the government, just, you know, putting our points across and our stance for particular topics, especially if there's a new law that might be coming out. Sure. And I do believe that they want to work with the police on educating and, just helping them become a bit more supportive, but there's no formal agreement in place yet.
Interesting. Sounds like, more people need to join forces there and create more, well, if there's not enough resources, I mean, there should be more funding, like people donating, corporates, whoever that wants to stand behind this. And like, I can't think of a more unifying cause than ending like domestic violence. Like, it's just, there's no one, you know, that doesn't care for it, that I know anyway, but like that I hear of anyway. It's like a green light, go, put the resources, go and make some more teams. But look, I'm speaking uneducated. I don't know what the police do, how they actually function, like even investigating. But it sounds like the courtroom and the evidence-based thing, it sounds like a very black and white difficult situation as well.
Yeah, and obviously not every situation is like that.
Yeah.
But we just can't have that at all. We need to...
Yeah, I know what you mean. It sounds like that's a program that should be easy to be for women to come across to, and also educate both people. See, I don't know enough about this, like what areas, what demographics and things it's happening to. I'm sure there's a ton of really insanely difficult contributing factors, what's going on with these people in like suffering from all angles. So it sounds like it's one of those things which I can't sit here and wave my finger and think it's easy, fix it. But
no, none of it's easy, is it?
No, but hey, look, you speaking about this and actually me learning like this is, I think more of it should be done. So yeah, all right. And what about, you were mentioning something else, you are involved with some pageants, or which sounded like, because I was asking you earlier about the difference of opinion under like feminism, and like it's quite jumbled, and then you mentioned something that seemed like, you know, about in the same category of not wanting to be judged but could very well be.
Yes.
What was this?
So as you mentioned, as we were talking about feminism earlier, and lots of people, the way that they see feminism is different.
Sure, a lot of competition in how it should be manifested. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And as I mentioned to you before, so I've done beauty pageants in the past, and I have actually just come back and just signed up to do one next year called Mrs. International Australia, which is very exciting.
Amazing.
And I think the reason why it's good to talk about here is because I know that some feminists think that it's sexist and it's outdated, because it's basically, you know, the way they see it is you're being judged purely on like what you look like on stage, and they're thinking back to the, when it was on, I'm thinking the UK now, but when it was on like Blackpool Beach and the girls were just standing there in their bikinis and, getting judged that way. But,
right.
But actually pageants are very different nowadays. And the one that I'm doing in particular, not purely, but mainly focuses on your platform and actually what you do for the community and what you do for society. So even Miss Universe, right? That's the one that everybody knows.
Yeah.
So Miss Universe, when she wins Miss Universe, she doesn't just, go and do photo shoots. She goes and like visits other countries. She goes and does charity work. She actually does things for society.
Yeah.
To
uses that position to
make a difference. And that's what I love about pageants. It's basically I do like being on stage as well. So that's fun.
Yeah.
But you only do that for one day. Whereas when you win the title, you have the title for a whole year.
Sure.
And it's for that year, it's all about what you can do as a person to actually make a difference to society. And obviously this is my platform. We've talked about my platform. It's, gender equality, and it's obviously eliminating rape and domestic violence. And other girls will have, so many different platforms. So it could be a disease like, eliminating cancer, for example. It could be to do with children.
Sure, some cause they're passionate about.
Yeah. And it's amazing to meet so many different women that have something that they're that passionate about. and the international, so I've been to America to do like the international pageants before, and just meeting women from all over the world, and I've been to China as well. And it's great to just meet all of these different women that have different things that they're passionate about, and just understanding like what they're doing to actually make a difference in the world.
Sounds like a fun experience. I guess the ideas under feminism like originally was like stop objectifying women. That was like your first wave type a couple decades back, and now it's shot through the roof the other direction. It's like do whatever you want, self-love, and have the options, do what you want.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. But so the whole, like, because obviously there is an emphasis on the physical side of women in the pageants. So some people still would think, well, this is wrong. Like it's teaching bad messages to kids or something. How do you respond to that type of
Well, a couple of things, I think. First of all, it's a competition. So I don't see how it's different from a sports competition, like long jump. Because
using your body to compete in something.
Yeah, and you have to train and become, your peak physical fitness to basically be able to succeed in that competition.
Is this like a sports fitness type one?
No, so the pageants, it is still called a beauty pageant.
Sure.
And maybe that's the challenge. It's because it's called a beauty pageant. Yeah.
Competing beauty. That's what people think in their head.
Which it isn't really anymore.
There's more to it.
Yes, there's
beauty
so much
comes
more to
in,
it.
all the other elements of beauty are added in.
Yeah. And if you think about it, everyone's beautiful, right? In their own way. Everyone's so unique, everyone's different. So how do you actually judge beauty?
Well, that's the thing though, right? I guess with Instagram and all that too, you have all these influencers with millions of followers that are rich and successful judging by their following, and it's mainly just purely, for the most part, like some physical attribute. So it's a difficult one, because I see what you're saying, and I think whatever you want to do, go do it. Like, have fun, and if you like it, go do it. But then also that message, which hard to respond to exactly when it's like you're emphasizing beauty standards, which is like a big deal, right? Like even the most influential, beautiful women are still talking about that and think it's so much pressure,
to be beautiful.
Yeah, and is that like a little element of it, the beauty pageants, or at least in their mind, whoever thinks this way is like, that's adding to this beauty standard on Instagram, the competitions of beauty, It's it's hard to address that. Like,
Yeah, and it is difficult looking at it from the outside. I can understand why they think that, but then every girl that you speak to who's actually done a beauty pageant will tell you how much it's developed them as a person. And I kind of go back to that competition. You know, you have like bodybuilders that it's kind of the same thing because they're, you know, obviously,
sure.
yeah, but they're building their body so that it can be in its peak condition, and then they're being judged on their body. The pageant, and it's only an element of the score, and some of them don't even have swimwear anymore, right? So the one that I'm doing now actually has sportswear rather than swimwear.
Oh, cool.
But it's not just about what you look like. It's more about your confidence on the stage, your presence. So, you know, how do you make the audience feel when you're on stage? Do you light up the room, sort of thing? And you know, just the way that you've like pulled all of your outfits together. And that's just the stage component, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
And then there's the interview, which is the biggest part about the platform. And the international competition, like 50% of the whole score is actually done on the interview. And then the other 50% are the 3 rounds on stage. But yeah, for me, like being on stage is just it's really great it's like going into acting.
It's pretty courageous to do something like that, yeah. So it's got to be empowering, and no matter who you are. If to get up on a stage for whatever reason is pretty difficult. So exactly. I think so
it just builds your confidence.
Sure, yeah.
And so we always say to, you know, people that say that it's sexist and you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
We always say, and it comes back to choice again. We always say, but if it's giving us confidence and it's building us as people, then why is it bad? You know?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like it always comes back to choice. So I mean, when you look at the Instagram influencers, these women out there that have got these surgeries and incredible bodies, and they're putting these filters on and they're looking like that. People criticize them, but they've got so many followers, they've got so much money, and it's like you're sending a bad message. And it's like, well, if they want to do that, I mean, that's their choice. I mean, if you're going to, it's going to affect young ones, that's where it gets tricky. But it comes back to, parenting, education, young ones. And yeah,
it is difficult especially for teenagers now.
Yeah, because you're clearly an intelligent woman, and you're telling me about all these different components in a beauty pageant. I'm sure you could educate young girls easily on what it takes and what it means. It's not just some shallow, simple thing that we do have in our heads, you know. So
exactly. And no, but it is, to be honest, life is difficult for teenagers now, because as you say, you've got, back when I was a teenager, it might have been, you know, in the people in the movies and people in magazines, but now it's all over the internet. In terms of women that just look perfect, and actually the best Instagram stars are the ones that show you both. So they show you the perfection, but then they also show you the real them.
Yeah.
To, you know, actually show, I don't look like this every day, sort of thing. I look like this because you know, I've made myself up and I've done the lighting all perfectly. And
so and that's the thing. Like, I mean, a lot of there are a lot of like women, I'd say, maybe in the influencer space with tons of followers, that are doing it wrong and just really trying to push a ridiculous standard that does create so much negative impact on, say, young ones and women in general, or just beauty, what people want, how they want to look. And I think the ones that are there is a section of those ones that are, not all probably, you know, obviously, but
genuine.
Yeah, that are, well, and actually literally like abusing that platform and power what they have, and you can just tell, and it's like you're creating a little bad thing going on here.
No, I agree. I think if you are in a position of power, so if you have a ridiculous amount of followers, you're in a position of power. I think you need to show people what real life is, and not just show them the glamorous side of things
Mm.
because it's unrealistic. So even if, a teenager aspires to be like that person, you need to show them how hard it was to get there. Otherwise, they're basically gonna do everything that they can to be like that person. But so if we talk about looks again, it might cause mental health problems or, anorexia, for example, if they're trying so hard to look like a specific person, but then what they don't realise is actually that person's photoshopped themselves to look
And they've
like
had
that.
surgery. Like that's so damn common, and it's just like, that isn't good. That can't be good. I mean, some cases, like from my perspective anyway, yeah, sure, do what you need to do to like be yourself and feel good. But there's a lot of cases, I just say, and I think many people can see, like where some Instagram influencing women have got surgeries done and they're just promoting this themselves of being beautiful, and it's like, you're really making everyone really want to get those surgeries. And
I think people need to be genuine.
100%, yeah. Anyway, that's a very tricky topic, that one. But okay, so tell me a little more about this, just the gender equality happening in your IT field. Obviously it's male dominated at the moment, right? Is there like goals? Do you guys have goals to like try to achieve? What are you going to achieve? What does it look like?
Yeah. So there's goals in terms of like getting to 50-50, which means...
Is that the ultimate goal?
Yeah.
Okay, so 50-50 ITs in this consulting firm would be mission accomplished.
Yes. I guess that's one goal, to have 50-50, but then you also need to look at like the gender pay gap and eliminating any sexual harassment, for example. There's a couple of other goals as well, but I think most companies, especially in the consulting industry, are trying to get to 50-50 by 2025, I think is the aim for some of them. Some of them it might be a little bit later. And then the next one, so that one's fine. I don't think that one's unachievable. The more difficult one is the leadership. So getting 50-50 in leadership, or at least, like 60-40. I don't know the exact number at my work at the moment, but I think on the average is probably more like 80-20. So, 80% men in leadership and 20% women.
Right, and so the group that you're a part of is trying basically, eliminate sexual harassment, get people at the same position. I guess it's maybe average, I don't know how it works out, but to be paid the same. And then 50-50 like numbers. So does that mean there'll be like quotas you have to like fill when it comes to like the hiring teams and things like that?
There are.
Yeah.
And this is
what are they by? Can I ask if you can share?
I don't know actually.
Like, does it just come in like, hey, this year we've got 10 positions, we're going to want 50? Is it 50-50 on we need gender quotas? Is that how it works?
They do have gender quotas. I don't know the exact quotas though. I don't know whether it's like you have to hire 60% women to try and equal it out. I'm not sure what the quota is, but
so it's going to be like way more. Okay, and then to even out what's currently there. So
there are quotas, and this is quite a controversial topic as well because the question that people have is, but you don't want to hire so you have two candidates, one is a woman and one is a man. You also can't discriminate and hire the woman who's actually less capable than the man, right? It needs to be even, which is why the quotas are hard, because so if there's two very even candidates, and you can only pick one, and you basically have to fill a quota, then there's potential that the woman might go forward. But what you don't want to happen is you're then putting a woman forward when actually the man would have been better in the job, because that's not fair.
Well, it's not good for business or anything. So
it's not. Which they don't do, and I know in my company they don't do that. It's still very, very much, when it comes to promotions or when it comes to recruitment, it's still whoever's the most capable will get the job. But at the same time, they're trying to get more women interested in technology. It goes back to what we originally talked about. There's not enough women coming forward, which is the main problem.
I think that's like where, I guess, all the discussions I've heard, which really critique and look at a few different variables or contributing factors, it's like that's where it's like the big deal. So, I mean, quotas can enforce something and 50-50, but say you could take all the industries across the South society, are men and women equally interested in every industry? Just not going to happen. I don't think so. It's like not, yeah. So when it comes to like your industry, it's like, how's it going to, you can enforce it, I guess, but then there's going to be such a small selection of women maybe naturally interested, given them their free choice, which is what they should be given, right? I guess incentivize it with money. They're going to choose to do it, but even then, it's like it's a weird thing because interest.
It is. It might bridge the gender pay gap because maybe the women will be so in demand that they'll get more money.
Yeah, well, that gender pay gap thing, like, I mean, also I'm just thinking, if there's a range on a position, can't you just eliminate the range? Just, like, give the position the flat salary, and then no one's at a loss. But I guess there's all this scaling with.
Yeah, so the challenge is because you have to give a range because people will sit in that specific role for years, so they need to be given pay rises, which is why there has to be a range within that role.
Okay.
And you've also got, so if I came from one company and I might be on a certain salary, they're not going to offer me less. Whereas somebody might have come from a different company and was on less to start with. So, do you know what I mean? So people come in from the outside at different pay. So to attract them, they're naturally going to get offered more. So that's also why there needs to be a range. But at the same time, so if you're getting a promotion, then they do try and put everyone on the same salary.
Sure.
I think it's where people move around and can negotiate. Yeah. And actually internally as well, some people negotiate. So they'll say, if you don't give me more money, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
So then naturally they'll get more money and they'll be on more money. And that, again, that goes back to a stereotype of men are able to negotiate or just think to negotiate higher.
Yeah, well, in the psychological realm, there's like agreeableness, right? It's one of the big 5 personality traits, and on average, men are less agreeable. That's what they say. And then, but then there's the conscientious, that hard-working realm, and it's like some people, more of the people that are highly conscientious are men than women. I think there's an average difference there, but in general, these people just don't stop working. I don't know if you've met certain types, but they love working, and and those people are going to be always kind of out competing.
Yeah,
it's a difficult one, that one too.
Yeah, you have different personalities, don't you? So it can never be. I don't think everyone can be paid exactly the same. But we do need to figure out how to just bridge the overall gap.
Open up the options and encourage. Yeah, that education in the young, at the school level and the young ones, I think that's a big deal. So,
yes.
I mean, if there's more girls out there that want to be engineers or IT specialists and they just haven't really had the path shown in front of them before, that's a big deal, I think. So.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and just back on this board, which is a big deal. I feel like I could talk to you a ton more just about that board, but I know you've got to be heading off sometime soon, so we'll wrap this up. But about that board, is that a role that you engage with like separate to your current role at your consultancy, and you do it in your own free time, or? Yeah,
so it's a volunteer role.
Sure.
And it's basically on the board of the company.
Okay.
So it's, from a responsibility perspective, it's like meeting once a month Minimum, that's when the board meetings are. Obviously, there's things that you do around that.
Sure.
And if there's any big challenges going on, then you meet more often.
Do you have like a current project that you are talking about at the moment, or is it just always?
No, because we're on the board, it's more. So we'll talk about everything. So we'll talk about the financials. Yeah, we'll talk about fundraising. We'll talk about all of the projects that are going on. Any new projects, we have to approve everything. Everything comes through us. Any challenges that are going on in the organisation would be brought. Big challenges would be brought to us. So yeah, there's not like one particular project going on, because there'll be multiple.
Well, I'd imagine there's it should be like a growing industry, and there's probably people that would be very interested to take part or have a look or learn what you guys are doing. And just it's not very well known. Like, I mean, it's there, but do you guys have a physical like office or something, or?
There is an office, but it's very much for the counsellors. To take the phone calls.
Oh, like the call centre.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
And other people that obviously work there as well. But
are they all like the call centre people? Are they volunteers or are they?
No. They actually work there. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
But they have a website, so that's probably the best way for people to have a look and find out more information about it. And just find out more about exactly what they do.
Lovely. I'll attach the website on the post for this podcast too, because it sounds like there's this opportunity to help, and that your organisation should probably be funded and resourced more, and to increase its reach. Yeah.
No, definitely. And I mean, there's multiple organisations in Australia that do similar things. I think people don't really know about it unless they've been in the situation where they need it.
Sure.
But as you say, there should be more awareness, and there should be more sort of fundraising from the public just for this particular topic, I think, because it's quite hidden.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's as you mentioned, if you're involved in it, then you search it out, but you hear a few posts on International Women's Day or something go around, but it's like one of those things that's just off in the side, which,
whereas it's going on all the time, and more needs to be done to try and reduce it and then eliminate it.
Yeah. All right, Laura, let's wrap it up there. I know you've got to move on. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming and telling me about all this, what you're up to with the organisation. If anyone wants to get in touch, I'll leave the website down there. And really appreciate your time, Laura.
Thank you. And hopefully we've both learnt different things today. Hopefully you've enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, of course, Laura. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.